Hello, welcome to the part 2 of object-oriented programming using Java. In the previous video, we thought of creating a class called human so that we don't need to create different entities for Walt and Jessie, and we don't need to repeat our code, and we can also follow the dry principle if we create a common class or a blueprint called human, and it will be having two string properties, one integer property and a boolean, and some method. Okay, it doesn't need to be very specific about it. I have a class called human. I'm using the Java programming language, and I'm using IntelliJ IDEA as my IDE. You can use any editor or IDE, and you can build this code using the command line or use your IDE or whatever. Okay, it doesn't matter. Even the programming language doesn't matter. I'm creating a class called human. It is having two string properties called first name and last name. This is how we declare string variables in Java. Then I have a boolean property called hasBeard, and then I have an integer called number of eyes. There is a method called getFullName. Okay, it just returns back the full name of it. Forget about this keyword. We'll be discussing that in the later part of this series. It will just return first name plus a space in between and then the last name. Okay, so if for example we are creating an object called Walter White, then it returns Walter White with a space in between Walter and White. Same applies to Jessie Pinkman. That is what this method does. Even this is under the scope of this class. If you can see, this is under this class over here. Then I have a method called describe yourself kind of. Okay, it will be having three print statements. One will be the getFullName function will be just used over here. The number of eyes will be printed obviously, and then if he's having a beard, it will print I got some beard, and the hasBeard property is false, it will print I don't grow beard. As of now, the main function is empty. Let us create some objects and instantiate objects to our classes. So in Java programming language, when we try to instantiate objects to a class, the data type of that object becomes the name of the class. For example, if you're declaring a variable int x equals to 5, you're creating an object like you're not actually creating an object over here. These are known as primitives, but just to give you an idea, you're creating an object called x with a data type of integer. Okay. Similarly, if you want to create a human object, then the data type of it becomes human. Okay, and you can name it anything. Let me name it as Jessie, and we use the new keyword, the constructor function, not human. It's human. We'll go through what the constructor function is in the later part of this series. So we created an object called Jessie, and we use the new keyword. So what is this new keyword? What does this do? It will allocate memory for this human over here. The new human instance called Jessie over here. So in the memory, it just allocates the required amount of storage capacity it needs to be done. Okay, for example, two string variables, they are 10 bytes each, and then comes boolean, which is 1 byte maybe, and integer, which is 4 bytes maybe. I'm just guessing this. I am not sure about strings, but I'm sure about these both. So these will be stored in a memory allocation, and a pointer to those, or a reference, not actually a pointer, reference to that memory will be returned back, and that will be assigned to this variable called Jessie over here. And Jessie is now an instance of human. How do we access these properties or assign the values to these properties, and how do we access the methods that they are having or retrieve the information that is being stored in here? Okay, for that we use the dot syntax. For example, I have Jessie and I can press dot, and you can see I get all these properties in here, hasBeard, number of eyes, and all of them. Okay, for example, I can assign first name equals to Jessie, right, and then I can do the last name equals to Pinkman. I'm using the dot syntax. Okay, object name dot property name equals to the value you want to enter in there. That is the syntax to set the values into those properties. Okay, I can also do the same for Jessie dot number of eyes. Obviously, for any human it will be 2. This program over here, this class, will be using this class too much in this series. I'll be using a single class to explain most of the concept so that you can refer to them easily. Then you has beard equals to false. I never seen Jessie with in the final part of the series I've seen Jessie with a beard, but initially he doesn't. Let us ask Jessie to describe himself. Okay, since it is having print statements itself here, I don't need to print it explicitly over here again. So I'll be like Jessie dot describe. Okay, he just describes himself, and when I run it, I get, hey, this is Jessie Pinkman. Since hey, this is, and the getFullName is using the method of that similar class over here, and here the first name and last name are being replaced by the things what we have entered over here. The values that we are setting to those properties are being replaced over here. Okay. Now I have 2 eyes. Obviously the number of eyes value we assigned it to be 2 over here, so it will be 2. And then since the has beard thing is false, the if statement will be false and it will come to else and it will print I don't grow beard. Okay. So you might be thinking, why would I need to create a class to do something of this sort? I can just create a dictionary or hash table kind of thing which is having key value pairs, and I can create the key of first name will have a value of jessie and something like JavaScript and all. Okay, JavaScript, that is how we create objects. We don't need classes for that. We have prototypal inheritance and complex concepts like that. We'll deal about those too. Yeah, we could do that, but that is what I've been talking about when I spoke about the try principle. You need to redeclare the first name and last name properties again and again when you want to create multiple objects. But if you're having a blueprint, you can just instantiate another object over here. For example, let us instantiate Walter. Okay, further, he's a new human. Now let me just copy these and put them over here, and this will be Walt dot first name. It will be Walter. This will be white. Even he will have 2 number of eyes. Obviously he's a human. Then it will be true because Walter White, he'll be having a beard. And let us ask Walt to describe himself too. Okay, now what do you expect? Since Walt is having the first name property set to Walter and not Jessie, and the last name as white and the number of eyes is 2 and has beard is true, accordingly the function over here, since the values of these properties are different from those of Jessie, the behavior of this describe method will also change. That is what I've told over here. Different in what values are stored in those properties and how methods behave depending on those differences in those properties. Okay, since the properties that we are setting over here are different from object to object, how methods behave will also be changing, will also be tweaking according to the data we are storing. You can see now we are having 2 instances of the human class. One is Jessie and another is Walt. Okay. To recap, we use the new keyword to allocate some memory over here. It allocates some amount of memory. For example, 20 bytes over here, 1 over here, and 4. It will be around 25 bytes. And that memory will be given a name, a reference, and that reference will be assigned to this variable called Walt, and Walt is now an object or an instance to the human class, and the properties are being set. And let me run it. The difference, this is Jesse Pinkman. I have 2 eyes. I don't grow a beard. That is obvious, but that is being printed over here again. Now this is Walter White. I have 2 eyes, the same, but I got some beard because since the property is true, now this system.out.println will be executed and not the below one. You can see I've created multiple objects using the same class over here. Now this is the blueprint, right? This will be just declaring what kind of data it will be having and defining the methods or actions it can perform. These will be varying too depending on the values we set over here. Okay. Now you might be thinking, what is the point of doing this whole class thing over here? Anyways, the number of lines or verbosity of the didn't decrease, right? Because I'm still accessing each property by property and assigning values to them explicitly like this. Instead of doing this, I can just create an object or a hash map called Jessie, and I can just do this. First name property equals to the key value pairs, as I've already mentioned. You might be thinking, what's the difference? But this is not a very ideal way to instantiate objects. You got something called constructors, which I promised we'll be discussing about them in the future videos. And in the next video, we'll be dealing with what constructors are, how are they very useful, and this keyword and some static properties and a lot of concepts. If you want to encourage me and if you like these videos, please do subscribe to my channel, The Skinny Coder, and I'll be back with an amazing video.